أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Understanding Qurbani. Stories from the Quran and Hadiths about Qurbani.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Welcome to the Holy Sacrifice Program, the Holy Sacrifice series. In our previous episodes, we've covered the meaning of Qurbani, what animals are permissible and not permissible, in other words, halal and haram, and some of the history and lessons involving Qurbani. In this episode, we'll learn in more detail about the Qurbani stories from the Quran, Hadiths, and other religious and historical facts. We have already established that the animals slaughtered to gain nearness and favour of Allah were from the animals that are halal to eat, and not from those which are haram, or non-permissible to eat. The majority of faiths believe and practice Qurbani to gain nearness and favour from their deity, but there is one of the well-known religions that is against or discourages the sacrificing of animals, and that is Buddhism. Buddhism, which originated 2,500 years ago in India, is known to be a religion that practices and promotes peace for both human and animals. Some even argue that Buddhism supports animal welfare because compassion for all living things is highly integrated in the belief of Buddhism. Buddhists believe that the human life is a cycle of suffering and rebirth, and that if one achieves a state of enlightenment, otherwise known in this case as nirvana, then it is possible to escape this cycle forever. In their faith, it is said that Siddhartha Gautama was the first person to reach this state of enlightenment, and was, and still is today, known as the Buddha, and those that follow his methodology are known as Buddhists. Buddhists do not believe in any kind of deity or God, although they believe that there are supernatural figures who can help or hinder people on the path towards enlightenment. All Buddhists seek to be in line with the teachings of the Buddha, but there are different interpretations of this religion around the world. It is common for Buddhists to follow a plant-based diet. However, not all Buddhists do. There are different branches of Buddhism that eat meat, but most do not. In Buddhism's school of thought, or the Buddha's doctrine, it is said that the Buddha said in the Dhammapada, which is a collection of sayings of the Buddha, "All beings tremble before danger, all fear death. When you consider this, you will not kill or cause someone else to kill. All beings fear before danger. Life is dear to all." This saying defends their beliefs and opposition towards the practices of Qurbani. Therefore, Buddhists try to do as little harm as possible to animals, avoid any jobs in connection with the killing of animals, respect animals and humans equally, and believe that both humans and non-human animals are capable of reaching nirvana, the highest state of well-being. We can say that all religious faiths believe in animal rights, which indicate the fair treatment of animals. But some faiths, such as Hinduism, take it a step further and worship particular animals. Cows, in particular, are greatly revered by Hindus because the cow is associated with a deity, who they say is the mother of all gods in Hindu scriptures. Additionally, cows provide more than they take. They also say the cow produces 5 things: milk, cheese, butter or ghee, urine and dung. The first 3 are eaten and used in worship of the Hindu gods, while the last 2 can be used in religious devotion or in penance or burned for fuel. In India, where 80% of the population practices Hinduism, the act of killing a cow is banned due to how sacred they are, and the Hindus do not eat any beef products. With the overall premise to be kind to all creatures with a soul, Hinduism claims to hold animal rights to a high degree, although they still sacrifice other animals for their religious purposes. There are similarities when it comes to the religious Qurbani with Judaism and Christianity. Judaism places a large amount of stress on the proper treatment of animals because they are seen as part of God's creation. The Jewish tradition clearly states that it is forbidden to be cruel to animals. Humans must avoid causing pain to any living creature, while Christianity and Judaism hold similarities in the values and beliefs of the religion, Judaism holds animal welfare to a higher standard. The Talmud specifically instructs Jews not to cause pain to animals, and there are also several Bible stories which use kindness to animals as a demonstration showing the virtues of leading Jewish figures. While animal rights are important to Jews, Judaism also teaches that it is okay to harm or kill animals if that is what's needed to do to fulfill an essential human need. It is stated in the Torah that human lives take priority over animals. This is why God gave man the ability to control all non-human animals. Observant Jews only eat meat that comes from an approved slaughter process, called shechita, much like the process in Islamic tradition to render meat halal. Animal rights activists find shechita to be egregiously cruel to animals, while Jews believe the opposite. From the point of their scholars like Moses Maimonides, who has been reported to have said, "Since the desire of procuring good food necessitates the slaying of animals, the Torah commands that the death of the animal should be the easiest. It is not allowed to torment the animal by cutting the throat in a clumsy manner, by piercing it, or by cutting off a limb while the animal is still alive. The shechita slaughtering method is designed to kill an animal with one single stroke of the knife, killing the animal instantly so they do not feel any pain. If the Qurban is done correctly, then the meat becomes kosher, meaning permissible to eat." Judaism's primary concern is with the essential needs of humans, and sets forth that if animals are treated properly, then they can be sacrificed for human needs and consumption. Jews, Christians and Muslims share a similar history when it comes to Qurban. We will now look how other faiths and cultures' beliefs and practices differ when it comes to the Qurban. The China Qurban, like other aspects of religion, has existed at a number of different levels. The essential feature of imperial worship in ancient China was the elaborate sacrifices offered by the emperor himself to heaven and earth. There are also records of sacrifice, including human sacrifices, associated with the death of a ruler, because it was thought proper for him to be accompanied in death with those who served him during life. But because the common people were excluded from the participation in imperial sacrifices, they had lesser gods. Some of the lesser gods were universal, and some of them were more local. Furthermore, ancestor worship and religion has been the most universal form of worship throughout China's long history. It was the responsibility of the head of a household to see to it that the sacrificial offerings to the dead were renewed constantly. The blending of these elements, which such established religions as Buddhism and Taoism, otherwise spelled Taoism, which is the indigenous philosophical tradition which has shaped Chinese life for more than 2,000 years, influenced the great diversification of sacrificial rites in China. Human Qurban has also been prevalent in the history of mankind, as humans were considered to be the ultimate or of a more higher value when it came to an offering. The occurrence of human sacrifice can usually be related to the recognition of human blood as the sacred life force. Bloodless forms of killing, however, such as strangulation and drowning, has also been used in some cultures. The killing of a human being, or the substitution of an animal for a person, has often been part of an attempt to commune with a god, to participate in divine life, or gain recognition and authority, as human life is the most valuable material for sacrifice. Human lives have also been offered in an attempt at expiation, as is known by the stoning of adulterers and the beheading of sinners. There are two primary types of human Qurban: the offering of a human being to a god and the entombment or slaughter of servants or slaves intended to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. The latter practice was more common. In various places in Africa, where human sacrifice was connected with ancestor worship, some of the slaves of the deceased were buried alive with him, or they were killed and laid beneath him in his grave. Particular African cultures and kingdoms such as Dahomey instituted especially elaborate sacrifices at yearly ceremonies related to the cult of deceased kings. Excavations in Egypt and elsewhere in the ancient Middle East have revealed that numerous servants were at times buried with the funerary equipment of a member of the royal family, in order to provide that person with retinue, or in other words, a group of companions in the next life. The Chinese practice of burying the emperor's retinue with him continued intermittently until the 17th century. The sacrificial offering of humans to a god has been well attested in only a few cultures. In what is now Mexico, the belief that the sun needed human nourishment led to the sacrifice of thousands of victims annually in the Aztec and Nahua calendrical corn ritual. Religious beliefs have been used to give mankind hope, explanations, justifications, control, and order, to the point where one's own life may be sacrificed, willing or unwilling, whether like Ismail, the son of the Prophet Ibrahim, whom because of his faith gave himself up to be slaughtered, or like many of the children of Israel who were ordered to kill each other in order to be forgiven because of their worshipping of the cow, or because of the religious beliefs of others, where many people fell victim and were sacrificed to other deities than their own. As mentioned, the Aztec people, which is now known as Mexico, believed that the sun needed human nourishment, and led to sacrifices in which as many as 20,000 victims perished annually in the 14th century CE. All kinds of qurbans have been done for many different deities. Many humans and a wide variety of animals have been served as sacrificial offerings. In ancient Greece and India, for example, oblations included a number of important domestic animals, such as the goat, ram, bull, ox, and horse. However, in the Greek religion, all edible birds, wild animals of the hunt, and fish were used. In ancient Judaism, the kind and number of animals for the various sacrifices was carefully stipulated so that the offering might be acceptable and fully effective. This sort of regulation is generally found in sacrificial cults. The offering must be appropriate to the deity to which it is to be presented. Very often, the sacrificial species, animal or vegetable was closely associated to the deity's symbolic representation, or even its incarnation. For example, in the Vedic ritual, the goddesses of night and morning received the milk of a black cow having a white calf. The bull of heaven, Indra, was offered a bull. Surya, the sun god, was offered a white male goat. Similarly, the ancient Greeks sacrificed black animals to the deities of the dark underworld, swift horses to the sun god Helios, pregnant sows to the earth mother Demeter, and the dog, guardian of the dead, to Hecate, goddess of darkness. The Syrians sacrificed fish, regarded as the lord of the sea and guardian of the realm of the dead, to the goddess Atargatis, and ate the consecrated offering in a communion meal with the deity, sharing in the divine power. An especially prominent sacrificial animal was the bull, or its counterparts, the boar and the ram, which, as the representation and embodiment of the cosmic powers of fertility, was sacrificed to numerous fertility gods, such as the Norse god Freya, the Greek bull of the earth, Zeus, Chthonius, and the Indian bull of heaven, Indra. All of this idol worshipping faded away and was proven futile by the prophets and messengers that were sent during mankind's timeline or throughout the ages. But the ritual of Qurban remained. The Qurban of humans and produce still remains. In regards to the Qurban of produce, then the Chinese to this day produce fruits and bowls of food as offerings made to the deceased, to earn the deceased's soul's merit. They will offer the food that the deceased enjoyed eating in his or her lifetime. The food offerings are usually replaced daily, but fruits can be left on the altar for a little while longer. Offerings of fruits, vegetables, and other vegetarian foods are preferred, and meats are avoided because they symbolize the killing of animals. These symbols strongly influenced by the Buddhist ideology we mentioned earlier. The human Qurban, which is still openly practiced in Christianity, is the symbolic sacrament or ritual of eating the flesh and drinking the blood of Jesus, who is their deity. This practice is called the Eucharist, which is at the heart of Christian worship. It is celebrated by Christians around the world as a memorial of the death and resurrection of Jesus, in response to his words at the final meal he shared with his disciples. Christians say that in the Eucharist, God invites us to his table as a foretaste of the heavenly banquet, which he has prepared for people of all nations and cultures. The Christians believe that this Qurban from their deity to their deity is part of their worship, and the followers or congregation eat bread to simulate the flesh of Jesus and drink wine to simulate the blood of Jesus. Contemporary scholars debate whether Jesus meant to institute a ritual at this event called the Last Supper, and if at all the Last Supper was an actual historical event. It is also questionable that the Eucharist had its origins in a pagan context, where dinners to memorialize the dead were and is still common. We have to remember that the most important part of a Qurban, regardless of its history, is not what is actually slaughtered or sacrificed, but it is the intentions it is done in, and to whom, as we will be judged upon our intentions as well as our actions. So the Qurban, whether it is a symbolic act of consuming a Qurban of a human being, or the slaughter of an actual living animal, or producing fruits and cooked food for the deceased, or whether it be self-harming and mutilation, the practice is still an offering of worship and devotion to a deity which is based around hope and faith in a power greater than us. Wow! This was a great insight into the mindset and history of mankind and Qurban, which highlights that even though time goes on, the core mindset of human beings has not changed or even developed that much. A large majority of human beings are followers and need some form of a deity to help with explanations and unanswered questions. A question we should ask ourselves is that we have been created to worship a deity which is unseen, but which is clearly providing for us. The sun and the moon with their measurements, the earth with its resources, the animals and their lives for our sustenance. Mankind has been placed in charge and has responsibilities over the earth, but with a deity to answer to from the beginning of our existence, and worship and Qurban playing a key role, if not the key role. Is hope the one thing which all this relates to, but which is given the least thought? The answer? What is hope? And is it the most powerful emotion in the universe? Can mankind survive without hope? Or even is life worth living without hope? Qurban increases the hope, and lives are sacrificed for the hope. Thanks for joining us in the Holy Sacrifice series. Hope to see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.